So welcome to the actual shot production. So in this chapter, as I promised, I will be covering of shot production from animation all the way to the compositing. And in this shot, I will talk about the V-Ray offline rendering workflow. There's not going to be much about real-time rendering in this shot. And what's going to be included in this shot is I will talk about the animation, something like motion capture editing, how to import mocap data, and how to use V-Ray to render, set up the lighting system, and how to render our multi-pass AOV lighting rendering. And then we're going to be talking about the compositing in Nuke and talk about how to use some of the particle system to create matte for some like rain effects, etc. Very exciting stuff. So in this shot, it's this main character in cockpit and descending from the outer space, going through the cloud, going through a rainy cloud onto the actual landing site. So in this shot, I would say the highlight is the first of all the motion capture data import, and then doing the cinematic lighting, and then doing the compositing rain effects. First of all, let me just briefly talk about the reference for this shot. So I collect a lot of reference from the Interstellar and Oblivion, mostly for the windshield rain effects and lighting, and how to what kind of a camera angle is better for showing this kind of interior, very compact space. And this is more of like direct light, but the previous one is more of like cloud diffused lighting. You can see the shadow is pretty diffused, soft. Some other very important reference is that I want to show the texture, like the shader of the armor, like this kind of rusty, oily, old rubber-ish metal. So like we talked about in the look development, we use the roughness map to break down the highlights. So I want to kind of show those kind of variations in this shot. As you can see, I collect also some matted metal reference, something like this. You can see the highlight is broken down, and this is a pretty good helmet like plastic rendering, how to introduce the dust. So as always, the first step is always to collect the reference. Material reference, lighting reference, etc. So this is pretty much it for the first reference. And for the motion capture, I want to talk about for the motion capture library, I always use the Mixamo website. It's Adobe. I think those website is under Adobe, so if you have an Adobe account, you can actually use those motion capture data for free, and you can even upload your own character and rig it. You can just actually upload your own model and asset and rig it and download them, apply those motion capture data. So it's very, very, very handy tool for some quick automatic rigging. For the motion capture data, they have a huge library. You can actually just search the keywords. It doesn't have to be exactly the same keywords. It's something within that ballpark, and it will just give you a similar result. I think for this shot, I use a typing. I think it's the typing, like a human type on the keyboard seated motion capture clip, and I tweak it after just to make it work for this shot context. And because this whole motion capture library is game ready, so all the clips are cycles, which means it can seamlessly blend, it can seamlessly play in a loop. And there's also some parameters you can tweak before you download the mocap data, just to tweak the arm space and overall speed. Now let's just download this type mocap, and when we download, we can choose only to download the FBX motion joints. We don't need the whole skin, because what we download, the motion capture data comes in as the FBX mode. Before we can actually apply the mocap to our character assets and retarget it to it, we need a T-pose to calibrate our character's T-pose into the Mixamo's T-pose, and we can constrain those characters in our assets to those joints under T-pose. After that, we can just import the mocap data, and it will overwrite the joints has the same name, and this will give us the actual motion. So let's just import our character assets where you can download from Ben's website. I should include the download link in the project file package, and so if you cannot find it, it's just to go on Ben's ArtStation and there will be a link there. And then while it's importing, we can download a T-pose at Mixamo. You can just type in search T-pose. We're gonna use posture to calibrate our two rigs. Okay, now our model is imported, and let's just import the T-pose FBX we just downloaded. Remember to switch back to legacy to avoid crashes. I think there's some like expressions used in either scanning or the muscle system, so Viewpoint 2.0 doesn't really like this rig. Let's just import the T-pose from Mixamo. As you can see, the first thing you notice that the scale is different. I think it's 1:10 scale difference. Well, because we cannot really scale the rig, it might screw up the IKFK system. So it's always recommended to scale the joints down, because all the joints motion is relevant to its parent joint. So as long as we scale the joint overall, like we group the joints and scale them down overall, it won't really change any motion on independent joint. So let's just get rid of all the animation. I would say a general rule is to always scale, tweak the mocap data instead of the rig itself. Now we put all the T-pose joints into a group and make sure the pivot is at the origin. Then we just scale down this whole group. I think it's at 1.21. So when you're scaling, because the proportion of this rig and the joints is not necessarily the same, it's all when we scale down this joint, it's good to pay attention to where the hip and the shoulders are. Even if the head is not overlapping perfectly, it doesn't matter, because the head motion is only rotation and relative to its shoulder and the spine. So now I'm just looking at where the hip, basically where the pelvis and the shoulder height. And then the next step is we just to move the controller of our rig into a T-pose, so we can constrain the controllers to the joint. So let's just raise up the arms a little bit and move it back. This is quite an important step, because this will actually dictate the quality of later on when you import retargeting those motion captures. So just good to spend a little bit of time on this stage. And here's the good trick, is that when you're dealing with motion capture data, it's always good to put the limbs, the foot, the legs, and arm into FK, just so you can get a one-to-one translation from the mocap to the controllers. Now we just raise up the shoulders a little bit, maybe down a little bit. I'm completely eyeballing it. So roughly, as you can see, our model is in a rough T-pose as a joint. Not 100%, but good enough for us to use. As long as you keep the hip and the shoulders and roughly the same height. In terms of the arm angle or leg angle, it doesn't have to be perfect, because later on we can tweak it. The next step is, like I said, we just use a parent constraint to constrain each controller to its relative joint. I would say maybe I would need to rotate the legs a little bit more to give a better match. But you know what? It's fine in this case, because the legs in FK and the motion is all relative. Doesn't really matter. Okay. Let's start from the hip. Let's select the Mixamo's hip and constrain, using passive constrain it, maintain the offset, constrain it to our hip controller. Sorry, it should be the other way. Constrain the hip controller to the joint and the leg. And for the leg, we only need the rotation, and I think only thing we use translation is just the hip, and the following controller is only the rotation. You can see the controller's translation is actually locked for the legs. Yeah, this is kind of a boring step, so I'm just gonna do it pretty quickly here. And then we go to the spines. The spine one, let's just open up the group so we can see it better. We have 3 spines bones, and we also have 3 spine controllers, so it's perfect. And then the second spine goes to the second controller, and the third spine goes to the shoulder, upper body, torso controller. The next is neck and head. And then we go to shoulders. Let's do left shoulder first. And same, only the rotation, and arm rotation, and the forearm, the hand. I didn't really want to do the fingers right now because it's going to take too much time, but it's the same process to constrain the fingers controller to the fingers bones. Do the same thing to the right side. Maybe I need to tweak the pose a little bit more here. Okay. Even though it is important to keep the T pose as much as you could in this step, but later on we can always tweak the animation, use the different we can always use the animation later to tweak the pose further. So don't kill yourself over matching the T pose to the bones. So if you really can't get it, it's fine. Okay, now we should have a proper recalibrated rig and constrain the bones, constrain the controllers to the bones. Now, if we move the bones itself, remember moving the bones, the body actually moves with it. And right now, this rig has been properly set up for importing the mocap data from Mixamo. And in this shot, actually, I might need some of the finger animation. Well, actually, I think I intentionally cropped the shot so I don't have to worry about the finger animation. A good tip is that after you did this calibration once, it's good to save this new rig into a new file. So later on, you only need to import this file and then import the mocap data. And mocap data should just override the same, override the joints with the same name, so you don't have to do the step every time you start with a new shot. So this is the first step, setting up the rig and recalibrate it with a Mixamo T-pose rig. And the next lesson, let's just import the actual mocap data.
Purchase genuine tutorial. Enjoy the question answering from course tutor in the long term. Join the exclusive Facebook group and learn from each other. Also, you can sign up with Yihu.com. Search for the course ID. Obtain the full learning courseware, project files. Follow us on Facebook. Get closer to become a master in CG field.